Fast Asleep with Gina Marie. You have found the right place if you wanted a great short story, a classic short story. Thank you for being here, and thank you for those climbing subscriptions. Nice job. Oh, I'm Gina, and Marie, well, Marie's been scouting for holiday stories. Marie is responsible for today's story, a fun Thanksgiving story we hope you like. Despite all the extremely early Christmas stuff that we're all exposed to, I think Thanksgiving is special too, don't you? It's very special for me. Here's the deal. It's a great day to just be with family. Yes, you eat a wonderful meal. There are no gifts required. And you can just be together, feeling thankful to be able to do so, right? So, I came across a couple of Thanksgiving family anecdotes. Let's see what you think of them. There's a couple here that deal with the beloved mashed potato, and I found them from the editors at The Yankee. Let's see what I've got here. Oh, first one, Uncle Bob lends a hand. Good old Uncle Bob. I spent my first Thanksgiving with my husband in his Irish-Italian neighborhood in New York City. As a newcomer, I was placed in charge of boiling 15 pounds of potatoes. When they were ready, I picked up the pan and surveyed the crowded kitchen for a sink in which to drain them. My husband's elderly Uncle Bob guided me to a small half-bathroom and grabbed the steaming pot. He started to drain the potatoes into the toilet. It gets worse. But he lost his grip on the lid, and all the potatoes tumbled in. I screamed, "Oh, no!" But Uncle Bob, he began fishing the potatoes out of the toilet. "No one will ever know," he whispered. "Now, just go out there and mash them." Well, some time later, during the meal, my husband's Aunt Tot leaned over and whispered, "Your potatoes are delicious. I think you are going to fit into this family quite nicely." I'm not sure I ever want to eat mashed potatoes again. Oh, and then there's this one. This is a mashed potato story involving a cat. It's called Catnaps. When the time came to serve Thanksgiving dinner, I mashed the potatoes and spooned them into a beautiful serving bowl. I turned away to get a carving knife for the turkey, and when I glanced back at the bowl of mashed potatoes, I was horrified to see Pepper the cat had decided it was the right place for a nap. Speechlessly, I tugged on my wife's shirt and nodded toward the bowl. Her eyes widened in disbelief, but, well, we composed ourselves, shooed Pepper out of the bowl. It must have been a big bowl. And we scraped off the top layer of potatoes and served them. And finally, just to prove that Thanksgiving really is all about family, there's this one. 'Twas the night before Thanksgiving, and I was in charge of making the dinner. I was fresh out of college and had never cooked a turkey before, but I was confident that I could do it. My family was counting on me to make a delicious Thanksgiving meal, and I was sure I could deliver a feast to be remembered. I followed the instructions from Martha Stewart herself to a T, or so I thought. I spent hours stuffing, trussing, and preparing the turkey and all the trimmings. But when it came time to put the turkey in the oven, I accidentally turned on the broiler instead of the oven. Soon the whole kitchen was filled with smoke, and the alarm went off. My family came running into the kitchen to see what was going on just as I pulled the scorched, and yes, still raw, turkey from the oven. I was so disappointed that the turkey was burnt. And really, the side dishes were no better. The mashed potatoes were lumpy, the green beans were also burnt, and the cranberry sauce was stuck to the bottom of the pan. And oh, don't even get me started on the pumpkin pie. Defeated, my dad piled us all into the car, and on Thanksgiving Day, we went to the McDonald's drive-thru. No, it wasn't the traditional Thanksgiving meal that we were used to, but as we were eating our Happy Meals, we all just started to laugh until we had tears streaming down our faces. Oh, and I never cooked Thanksgiving dinner again. I hope that's not true. I hope she cooked Thanksgiving, or he cooked that Thanksgiving dinner again. Well, now, about our classic Thanksgiving story for this episode. Do you know it gets harder each year to come up with one? We've done quite a few. If you've missed our November stories from previous years, please scroll back for some Thanksgiving stories from O. Henry, Sarah Orney Jewett, and Louisa May Alcott. Those would be episodes 268, 218, and 217. Oh, and don't forget, we are always interested in your requests. Marie did a great job this year, though, bringing us a new author, too. She brought us Carolyn Sherwin Bailey. Now, about Carolyn. As a little girl, her grandmother gave her a doll that, decades later, would become her inspiration for a book that would win her the prestigious Newbery Award. Now that's pretty awesome. A New Englander through and through, Miss Bailey was born in Hoosick Falls, New York, in 1875. She was educated at home until age 12 by her mother, who was a mathematics teacher and a writer of children's books. She later attended Lansingburgh Academy near Albany, and she graduated in 1896 from Teachers College, at Columbia University in New York. She was always a student. She studied at the New York School of Social Work and found social work at New York City's Warren Goddard House. She was also schooled, this woman really never stopped going to school, was also schooled in Montessori education at the Montessori School of Rome, Italy. Now that would be nice. And she became a teacher in New York City public schools and later a Montessori principal at a Massachusetts kindergarten. Okay, this is really good, but what about writing? Okay, here we go. She was always interested in writing. As a youngster, she would dictate her stories to her mother. And she was only 19 years old when she published her first works. They were poetry and short stories. And soon she was very successful with her nonfiction works on subjects like early American art, education, that makes sense, and early New England history. Miss Bailey wrote and edited for the Ladies' Home Journal and other magazines. She also adored writing fiction for children, sounds like her mother. And this led her to her best-known work, based on that doll we mentioned earlier. Miss Hickory was published in 1947 and won the John Newbery Award the same year. Nice. Very nice. Well, believe it or not, there's not a lot of information about Miss Bailey's personal life. Probably wasn't very juicy. We do know she was married to Eben C. Hill in 1936, but we don't know whether she had children. She died on December 23rd in 1961 in Concord, Massachusetts, at age 86. And another thing we know, she wrote a lovely Thanksgiving story. Tuck in, everybody. From Carolyn Sherwin Bailey, here's Captain Christy's Thanksgiving. going beyond the lifeline. Oh, and the water's so rough. You'll never be able to swim. Oh, Donald, don't! Come back. Oh, don't go out that far. The voice of the boy's little sister, Nan, shrilled out over the singing surf and was lost before it reached him. The water of the bathing beach at Fisher's Point was temporarily warm for so late in the season. Inside the boundaries of the safety line that the Coast Guard had stretched to mark the danger line, there was a crowd of merry bathers. No one heard Nan's warning to her brother. No one saw his brown head bobbing on the far side of the rope, or noticed his arm waved above the surf in a gay challenge and goodbye. Oh, Donald. He was always daring in sport, but fighting ocean breakers was hard for a 12-year-old boy who could count his strokes in still water. For a moment, his white face showed above the waves. Then Donald disappeared from sight. Donald! Oh, save my brother! Donald! Nan cried, plowing her way through the foam and up the beach. Hey, there's a boy gone down. Where's the Coast Guard? Oh, he's gone down twice. The crowd knew now and shouted and made futile efforts to get out to him. But a slim gray boat suddenly swung out to sea from the upper end of the beach, nosing its way among the white caps like a setter scenting a fresh trail. It was manned and rowed by a crew of 4 sailors who sent it flying to the rescue. In its prow knelt an old man, his white hair and greenish-gray coat making him look like Neptune. Suddenly, he turned to give a quick order to the crew, and the boat came to a sudden stop. Hey, now that's Captain Christy. Oh, he'll get the boy all right. The words of the huddled bathers watching comforted Nan as she ran up the beach toward the pier from which the boat had started. Oh, you know, he's been the captain of the volunteer lifeguard for 50 years. I can't remember how many lives he's saved. Well, he's taught the boys and girls who come here in the summer to swim. Yeah, he's also had to pull them out when they go in too deep. Nan could hear no more, for she had reached the end of the tumble-down pier from which Captain Christy had started, and for which the boat was pulling up now. Ah, now. Don't cry, little petrel, the captain cried as he saw Nan in her black and white bathing suit stretching out her arms toward him. Okay, the lad's here. He's a bit cold, but not much the worse for his visit to the fishes. As he spoke, the boat slid alongside the pier, and the captain stepped out with Donald in his arms. Come on now to my house, he said to Nan. There's a fire going there, and, well, that's what the lad needs most. Heat and a hot drink. He strode ahead, and Nan followed to the little weather-beaten shack that had been his only home for over half a century. It looked like the hulk of some old wreck washed up there on the beach, but it was bright with orange nasturtiums that bloomed in the tiny garden, and a few flaming red chrysanthemums had opened, like the sun setting in red over the sea. Inside the shack, there were a few comforts. The captain laid Donald on the narrow bunk and poked the fire that smoldered in the little sheet iron stove. Then he set a pot of some thick, savory stuff on it and stirred it as the savory smell began to fill the one tiny room. Donald lay quietly for a moment, and then he opened his eyes and color came to his cheeks. All at once he pulled himself up to a sitting position. "Clam chowder!" he said, looking about him. "Yes, and you don't deserve it, you rash young scamp," Captain Christy said, as he dipped up a brimming tin mug of the chowder and put it into Donald's eager hands. Now what made you frighten your little sister so, and send me off on a chase through the surf after you when I was just putting a mess of chowder on to warm for my dinner?" But the captain's harsh words ended in a chuckle as he gave Donald a resounding slap on his back. "I know what you were up to. You were trying to brave the sea, and, well, that's a fine spirit to have. If only you're sure enough of yourself, I must take you in hand and see that you learn how to swim better." "Oh, thank you, Captain. I'm so much obliged," Donald said, getting on his feet. "And so will Mother and Father thank you," Nan said. "We're going home in a week, but we'll come over and see you every day. We ought to go now, really, for someone may have told my mother about Donald, and she'll be so frightened." Captain Christy went to the low door of the shack and looked out over the bare length of the beach and the cottages that would soon be empty. Going home," he repeated. "Yes, you'll see lights in the streets at night, and you'll hear clanging bells on cars, instead of the lighthouse lamp and the ringing of the bell buoy out in the cold." "Don't you ever go away from here? Not all winter?" Nan asked, wistfully. "Well, I haven't seen a city or kept a holiday in 20 years, Captain Christy said. The summer folks go, but I stay here and keep warm with driftwood, and I listen for the cries from the wrecks. I'm as busy in the winter as in the summer, and sometimes terribly lonely, little mates." The last days at the beach flew. Donald and Nan told Captain Christy goodbye, boarded the little steamer that crossed to the mainland, took the train, and the family was at home once more in the city. The beginning of school made them forget the captain waving goodbye to them from the pier. It was nearing Thanksgiving when their father read a newspaper headline aloud at the breakfast table. "Fishing boat wrecked." Stay with me. I'll be right back. It was nearing Thanksgiving when their father read a newspaper headline aloud at the breakfast table. "Fishing boat wrecked. Saved by veteran Captain Christy of the Fisher's Point Volunteer Guard." And then he laid down the paper. "Now that man is a hero," he exclaimed. "It's cold as Greenland up at the point now, and he's close to 70 years old." "He told us about the winter," Nan said. "The lighthouse lamp is all he can see, and the bell buoy all he can hear." She thought a minute, and then she ran over to her father's chair. "I've had a splendid idea," she said. Then she suggested something to him. "Donald and I were planning it for some time, but wouldn't it be beautiful for Thanksgiving? It could be done, couldn't it, Daddy?" Her father considered a moment, and then, "Why, yes, it could. And we will," he said. Thanksgiving came in with a nor'easter at Fisher's Point. The crew of the lifeboats straggled down to the pier and stamped to keep warm as they looked out over the choppy sea. "The steamer won't be making the trip today," they said. "She hasn't come across in a week now. Over yonder they're eating turkey and the families. I wonder if they ever think of the sailors who haven't seen the mainland since cranberries were planted." And then they fought the wind back to the captains, sat around the stove, trying to make their own cheer. Captain Christy put a few more hunks of wood on the fire. As he bent over the wood basket, one of the men nudged another. "You see him hold his back?" he whispered. "The captain's getting old." More lives than he can count he's brought in," the other whispered back. They started to help the captain, but they were interrupted by 3 shrill blasts of a whistle that sounded from the direction of the sea. New vigor in his old limbs, the captain sprang to the door, opening it to a blast of wind that cut like a knife. "Ha! It's the boat from the mainland," he shouted. "Oh, maybe she's brought the mail. She's weathered the storm for Thanksgiving, boys." Then he got down his glasses. She's unloading passengers? Oh, who ever heard of that in a gale like this? They've got cargo with them." At last he voiced the climax. "Oh, shiver my timbers, lads. The passengers and the cargo are coming this way." Donald came first, breathless from his run up the beach, his arms full, and followed by Nan. "A happy Thanksgiving, Captain," he shouted. "We've come to spend it with you. Father had to pretty nearly buy the steamer to get us over, but here we are. And we've brought you a few things to make the winter easier," Nan said. "And our chauffeur and Father are bringing more things," Donald added. "Tinned meats and vegetables and coffee and milk and tea, blankets, books and magazines, a roasted turkey, a big cake, jellies." It did not seem possible that their arms could have brought so much comfort and good cheer. Captain Christy could not speak at first, and then he brushed a suspicious mist from his eyes and reached out his hand to Donald. I'm more than grateful, he said huskily. And I know it's all the little mate's doing. And then he turned to his crew. Clear the decks, you lazy lubbers, he laughed. The ship's gonna set sail for Thanksgiving. They all managed to crowd around the little deal table that had a piece of sailcloth spread over it for a tablecloth and a bunch of coral in the center to decorate it. A tin pot of coffee on the stove and the warming turkey perfumed the shack. Isn't it jolly? Donald whispered to Nan as he sat on an upturned keg in front of his tin plate. Shh, Nan said. The captain's going to ask for a blessing. Well, 4 strong boats and willing arms and 4 folks who remember us. From the mainland, we give thee thanks, our Lord of the Sea, the captain said. There was a moment's hush. And then Donald stood up. Father says I may give you this, he said, pulling from his pocket a leather box. He snapped it open, and a flashing gold medal was disclosed on a satin cushion. It's for you, for being so brave. And he's arranged for you to come down to us whenever you feel like it, for we've got a room for you in the Sailors' Snug Harbor. Oh, it's a beautiful place. It's just for sailors, with ships going by all the time and green lawns, and everybody will want to see you and hear you tell stories. He stopped for breath. 3 cheers for the captain, said one of his crew.
Hooray! Hooray!
They all shouted them, and Captain Christy pinned on his medal with shaking fingers. Oh, I thank you, thank you, he said tremulously when they had quieted and begun on the turkey. And that Snug Harbor, it sounds fine. I'll come to it someday, but this Thanksgiving has put me in trim for a lot of storms yet. Thanks to the little mates. That's how it puts heart in an old sailor when the mainland remembers him, he finished gratefully. Introduction information for this episode is from encyclopedia.com. Music is Eleonora Troima from Oscar Schuster. Lamentation for a Lost Life from Max Richter. And Hummingbird from the Gothard Sisters. If you would like to contact me, I hope you will, and I hope you'll do it right here in comments, or you can email me at fastasleepwithginamarie44@gmail.com. Or there's always Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And we will stay right here for you as long as you remember to review, to like us, to keep up those lovely comments, and to subscribe. I truly thank you so much for listening. Keyword: grateful. And next week, Roald Dahl returns. Good night.